This meeting of the County Commissioners to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could remain standing for just a moment, we'll have a moment of silence for all the unrest that's taken place and the wars and things, to all the people, survivors of those things, and keep them in our prayers, hoping that things will get better soon. Thank you very much. First, we have a couple public notices. The first is going to be Code Home Rule Bill 9-2024, which was the Fox Hunting Club dog kennel. And it was passed with amendments and will become law on March the 14th, 2025. We have Code Home Rule Bill number 10-2024, and that was the Constructions Trade Board, the creation of a construction trades board, and that was voted, and it will take effect April the 18th, 2025. And both of those will be published in the Kent County News as well. We have 3 consent items. We have our regular session minutes dated March the 4th, 2025. We have our liquor minutes dated March the 4th, 2025, and we have Kent County Soil Services Advisory Board and its member composition. Any questions about any of the 3?
No, sir.
Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve all 3 of the consent items as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have a special recognition. It's Kent County, Maryland proclamation entitled Endometriosis Awareness Month. And I know we have a representative. You want to come up and say a few words, and then I'll read this proclamation.
Okay.
Welcome, by the way.
Welcome. Thank you for having me back. I greatly appreciate it. My name's Shannon Hannawald. I am the founder of Endo Warriors of the Eastern Shore, and I'm also an ambassador for the Endometriosis Association. This is the fifth year that Kent County has supported endometriosis awareness, and I am extremely grateful for that. Endometriosis affects every aspect of your life, physically, mentally, and emotionally. When I was 15, I started having horrible menstrual cramps, and for 5 years, the doctors told my parents that I was lying because I wanted to get out of school. When I was 17, I was at the point of, I didn't really feel like there was any point of me living anymore, basically, and I attempted to take my own life because no one would listen to me, and I don't think that anyone should ever be pushed to that point where they feel like that's their only option. I was able to have one son who is 19 now, and then I had to go through fertility treatments for my second son. We lost a baby in between that, and that was extremely hard for me. But I also have a lot of nieces who I have through blood and through love, and I do this for them and for the other young girls in our communities. I don't want them to ever be put into the position that I was put in or that other women are put in. It takes 8 to 10 years to receive a diagnosis for endometriosis, which makes absolutely no sense because 1 in 10 women are affected by it, but it still takes 10 years to receive a diagnosis. It can show up as early as 8 years old before you even start your menstrual cycle. Endometriosis is the thickening of the lining of the uterus, and what happens is the tissue grows outside of the uterus, and then it can attach all of your organs together. So even after having a hysterectomy, it can still grow on your other organs. It is related to a lot of autoimmune disorders, one being Crohn's, which I was diagnosed with 1.5 years ago. And I had a couple doctors in the ER who took me back to that 16-year-old girl because they told me that endometriosis was not painful and it was not an emergency, and they did not know I was there. The difference was I wasn't that 16-year-old girl anymore, and I told them exactly what I thought. But my fear is that if it had been one of my nieces or another young girl laying in that bed, and she wouldn't have known that. And I don't want anyone to feel like I did that night that I took that bottle of pills. So it's extremely important to me to keep talking about this. It is uncomfortable to talk about for a lot of people, and that's perfectly okay. But I will keep talking about it, and I will keep raising awareness about it so that we can keep protecting our next generation. So there are so many women that were unable to have children because by the time they were diagnosed, the endometriosis had taken over all of their reproductive organs, and there was no chance of them having any children. So there's no reason that it should take that long to receive a diagnosis, but the only way to receive a diagnosis is through laparoscopic surgery. You cannot find it on MRIs, ultrasounds, CAT scans, blood work, nothing like that. So if anyone has pelvic pain or back pain or issues with their menstrual cycles or issues with their bowels, their intestines, their colon, you need to go to the doctor and you need to advocate for yourself and fight for yourself to get answers because there is something wrong and each person needs to know that they're not alone, which is why I keep doing this, and having the counties and the cities support me helps the women in the community know that they are not alone and that they have you guys behind their back. So I greatly appreciate you continuing to support this and support the women in the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your hard work.
This proclamation is Kent County, Maryland proclamation entitled Endometriosis Awareness Month is March. It says, whereas an estimated 200 million women worldwide have been diagnosed with endometriosis, a disease for which there's no cure and often makes treatments for women problematic. And whereas the cause of endometriosis is unknown and helps contribute to the lack of education, understanding, and social acceptance of those who constantly have to battle endometriosis. And whereas endometriosis has caused women to face discrimination from employers, friends, family, and doctors due to this unpredictable disease. And whereas the local support group, Endo Warriors of the Eastern Shore, has joined together with others to promote awareness, support, and education for a better understanding of endometriosis and the ability to diagnose and treat it. And whereas understanding endometriosis will help guarantee hope for a better future for women and children who continue to battle this disease. Now therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim March 2025 as Endometriosis Awareness Month in Kent County and recognize and acknowledge the importance of raising awareness of endometriosis. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, John F. Price, Member, and was dated March 11th, 2025. So it's our privilege to present you with. If
Thank
you'd
you.
like to have a picture, we'd
Yes,
be glad to.
please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
God bless you.
I'll see you next year. Thank you. Thank you so much.
First appointment is someone for Kent County Commission on Aging. Mayor Sorgi. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, and thank you all. I'd like to introduce Gwen Spicer, who is one of the newest members of the Kent County Commission on Aging. She's a representative from Heron Point. And I'm here today, as per our bylaws, to give you the annual update of what's going on with the Kent County Commission on Aging. First of all, I want to thank you all for your support. Anytime we've come to you, you've been really very generous with your time and expertise, and it helps. As you know, there are many of us in Kent County who are senior citizens, and the number is growing. But one of the missions of the Kent County Commission on Aging is to advocate for senior citizens. And as the Commission on Aging, we do that by coordinating with Upper Shore Aging and the Amy Lynn Ferris Senior Activity Center. And I'm going to put in a plug here because this month they are celebrating their 50th anniversary at Amy Lynn Ferris. And they have a slew of wonderful activities provided. And because of the enthusiasm, the attendance at Amy Lynn Ferris has increased dramatically, which helps to alleviate social isolation. It gives seniors an opportunity for learning experiences. They have medication management, crafts, things like that. But again, one of the most important things is the senior isolation. It gets people out. Many of them use DC Transit to get there. They get a lunch. It's a great, if you ever have a chance, stop in and see, because it's a fun place to be. We've also worked with Meals on Wheels to help advocate for that program, and we did some fundraising for them. But again, another really critical program that serves our senior citizens. We have more than 60 people who are Meals on Wheels clients who receive meals during the week. That most of them are homebound. They're all homebound, and many of them are unable to prepare meals for themselves and clean up. The other thing that we help to support is the senior, Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP. And Susan Higgs does a great job of recruiting senior citizens to fulfill volunteer positions around the county. And as you all know, lots of places wouldn't operate unless they had volunteers. And this gives, this is an opportunity for a matchup between senior citizens who want to volunteer and places who need the volunteers. We also were very supportive of the senior housing project in Millington, and we're really excited to see how that grows, and another much-needed resource for our community. One of the things we did is last year we published a senior resource guide, and members of the Commission on Aging worked with county agencies so that we've tried to provide numbers and resources for just about any kind of service a senior citizen would need in Kent County. But this is kind of a dynamic thing. This year, we will be revising it because things change, and we will be republishing it. We published 5,000 of them, and there are probably 300 left. We had them in doctor's offices and town offices, and it works. It seems, people seem to use it, and so we hope to keep that going. And then we'll continue some outreach with the health department and the library to make sure we're all working together to provide services for senior citizens. And that's about it.
Well, let me just say that the paper that you just spoke of, showing all the services that are available to seniors, has been something that was talked about for quite a while, and now you've put it together. I think that's a great service too, because there was so many so many things available to people that they didn't really know anything about and couldn't be expected to know it all. So that provides a list of all the services in the county to them, and I think that's a great achievement.
And we did it in large print.
So
Cost a little more, but yes, thank
It
you.
appears to be in bold.
Pardon?
The print appears to be bold.
Yes. So we can all read it. But, great.
So Mayor Sorgi, what are you hearing on the impact that Upper Shore Aging and so forth will be maybe hit with from the state at this point?
Well, they've already been hit with, in this current budget year, with freezing of funds, and almost 8% of their budget has been frozen, and that's going to impact, again, any senior services for Upper Shore Aging, including, they have senior care, which is an important service to help, again, homebound seniors. And I don't know what, we've supported them, and we've written to our legislators and tried to get, but we all know there's a budget crunch, and it doesn't look really great for next year. And I think it's going to mean that we have to deal with limited services, and those of us in the community have to step up and help do what we can to help.
if I remember right, it was to the tune, I think when it was like $28,000 you were going to lose, which would obviously affect things like Meals on Wheels and,
Yes.
and those programs.
Yes.
But
So, it's a fact of numbers, I guess, but it doesn't make us very happy. But again, we did some lobbying with our legislators and things like that, but there we are.
well, we'll all be going through a budget here in the next couple of months. We'll see where we stand when it all, because we're not sure how much more is going to take place until they close down over there.
Yes, sir, I understand that. I understand the budgets. Only so much money you can stretch.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, again,
Thank
thank
you
you
for-
for your support, and we appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you and all you all do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take care, thank you.
Next up, on the agenda is Mr. Robert Bell, Executive Director of our Public Library and Board of Library Trustees. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for
Morning.
Good morning to all of you. I'm here to request the appointment of a very esteemed member of our community, Bruce Rydell, to fill the final seventh seat of our Board of Trustees. We had a resignation at the end of last year, and that seat has remained open until now. I sent the request, the information, the profile, and his resume. He was a federal employee for many years, has published 9 publications, 9 books on topics related to politics and international law and so forth. I think he'll be an excellent member of the board.
Well, thank you. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Bruce Rydell to the Board of Library Trustees for a 5-year term ending December 31st, 2029.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much and good luck with.
All right, thank you so much. I
Board member.
appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Officer Shepard, you want to come forward? You're up next with Kent County Detention Center Prime Care Addendum to provide medication-assisted treatment program, nursing services. And Mr. Wallace, Captain Wallace. How are you, sir?
All right, good morning.
Good morning to both of you.
All right. We've come before you this morning to talk about Prime Care providing a mat nurse for our facility. Currently, once we went with Prime Care as a medical provider in 2023, they've been doing the mat program since that time and not charging us for it. And I believe it's because of our low ADP, but that's just my opinion. So what we're trying to do is they wrote a service agreement with Prime Care. They'll provide a LPN for 16 hours a week to handle the MAT program. And the grant that we got right now, the funding will pay for that. So it wouldn't be no cost to the county. We're just moving the money from personnel and the FY25 PIGF grant to contractual, and that'll go directly to Prime Care, which is $44,700 some dollars annually. And our grant is $48,000 for a nurse and $14,000 for fringe benefits. So this cost would be absorbed by the grant, so it wouldn't be no cost to the county as a whole. All we're doing is moving funds from personnel to contractual, and then Prime Care will be providing an LPN 16 hours a week to handle the MAT portion of it.
Do we have one yet?
I'm pretty sure Prime Care, Derek Hughes has one, so he drafted the letter, the service agreement and all that, so. But right now, the Prime Care nurse has been doing that, plus the daily facilities at the, at the detention center, as far as med pass physicals, et cetera, assessments.
It's just an extra, for her, it's an extra, it was something that she wasn't really geared to do, but she did it on behalf of just trying to be a team player, help us out. But it's just gotten to the point to where it's like, we see all that she does, and it's I think it'll be only fair to compensate her for what she does, something that she's not contractually obligated to do. But because we don't have a MAT nurse specifically for the MAT program, so we use what Prime Care did is they let us use their nurse that is for the facility to also do the MAT program. So it they really helped us out, during this whole time. So.
And currently, we have 11 people on the program, 10 males and 1 female. So it can be cumbersome throughout the day, scheduling follow-ups with a doctor, ordering medication, dispensing medication on top of our daily task already. So we've been blessed at Prime Care. Most agencies charge you for a MAT nurse separate. That's how they do it. But I believe it's because our ADP is low. They haven't charged us since July 2023 when we signed on to do the agreement, which I just think that they're doing that out of the courtesy of, professionalism, and they're just doing it. They've never mentioned nothing about charging us. But it's becoming overwhelming for the current nurse, and we don't want her to leave in lieu of this as well, because it's becoming overwhelming to her and the other nurse. We have 2 nurses, but she usually does MAT first thing in the morning about 10 o'clock, so. And the grant's going to take care of the funding. We just need the commissioner's approval if they would sign the service agreement to let Prime Care bring an LPN into our facility to do the MAT program.
Any questions, gentlemen?
For clarification, the MAT program is the medication-assisted treatment program?
Yes.
It's House Bill 116 that was mandated to all facilities.
So basically, what you're asking for here is to move money from within the grant to pay for this
Yes, sir. From
extra treatment program.
Yes, sir. It'll go from personnel to contractual.
And do you think that you're going to be able to get an agreement from the folks that gave you the grant to do that?
Yeah, we've been in contact with them numerous times. Our state lady that we turn all of our data into quarterly, and she said you can move the money anytime throughout the grant until it expires of June of 2025. You just had to fill out a gains thing, and our grant writer and the lady at University of Maryland, Dr. Belcher, she's very fluent on how to do this, so I don't foresee it being an issue.
And Real quick, can you tell me again? I think I heard you say 16 hours a day.
16 hours a week, I'm sorry, a week.
16 hours a week.
Yes, sir.
You probably did say week. I
Sorry.
just heard 16. I wasn't sure.
16 hours a week, they will pay LPN at the facility through Prime Care.
So when they're not there, who's going to be distributing the medication?
I think the way it may work is they may work 2 LPNs and they'll rotate maybe, so the week's all covered, I'm hoping. Or they may let the nurse that's there on the weekend do the weekend, and then the other one would do Monday through Friday, I'm not sure, but he's indicated, I spoke with Mr. Hughes, it'll be covered, so. Right now, it's been covered since 2023, which we're extremely thankful that we have a team player like Nurse Johnson at our facility.
And this grant that you have for the service, is this something that you think you'll have again next year?
I do, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we applied for one already. We're just waiting to hear back in May. Our grant writer submitted it, Ms. Joanne. So we're just waiting to hear something back from them.
Anything else?
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and sign the Prime Care addendum to provide a medication assistant program nurse.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you,
All
gentlemen.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Next up, we have our Miss Jill Coleman is Department she's a head of the Department of Parks and Recreation. Talk about a subject that seems to come up pretty much every year anymore.
Yes. Good morning. I also have Marva Kumpf, who is our deputy director. Woo!
Careful there.
Nice to have you, Mark.
So before I turn it over to Marva, yes, this is usually a subject that comes up every year, which is shortcomings of lifeguards. It seems to become an issue ever since of 2020 with COVID. And we're always looking to proactively try to cover all of our pools and our beaches for all of our residents to enjoy them, as well as visitors who come into our county. So this is really no shortcoming of HR. They've done a great job with trying to recruit kids. We've been at the public school system during their lunchtime trying to get kids involved and trying to get them to come work for us for the summer, not only as for lifeguards, but all of our positions that we fill throughout the summer. So we have certainly been working the ground and trying to be able to cover all of our pools with our lifeguards and along with all of our summer camp as well. So, but we find that with lifeguards, because they need certification, it's a little more difficult to find those children out into the community. So I'll turn it over to Marva.
So what we're looking for is a proactive approach to our lifeguard shortages. And this isn't just for Kent County, there's a national lifeguard shortage. So this is what we're trying to do to combat that, to keep our sites open and safe. So due to increasing lifeguard shortages, securing a contract with an outside pool management company is essential to maintaining consistent and safe pool operations in Kent County. During the past summer, Millington Pool operated at a reduced capacity 80% of the time, that being 23 out of 28 weekend days of the summer. When we have these shortages, lifeguards are frequently pulled from other sites, from the beach and then Bayside out in Rock Hall, to cover our main pool at the community center, and then out at Millington. The community center pool ran on a limited capacity most weekend days due to staffing shortages. Without a proactive solution, we risk further reductions in services, site closures, or indeed safety concerns without the proper amount of lifeguards. We secured an initial quote from Coastline Pools Services to establish a baseline of what that would cost to service our pools. So that's the big figure we look at. And they would be providing operational support, staff for Millington pools, what we're looking at. And that would ensure that our pools remain open, fully staffed, and functional for the community. Little contract overview is we're looking for the 2025 season to manage just at Millington Pool. The contract that we're looking for would include pool maintenance, water treatment, lifeguard staffing, and seasonal opening and closing procedures, which would ensure a smooth operation throughout the summer.
Jill, before we go any further, how many lifeguards do we need to do it all on our own? Did I see 25? Is that what you said?
So if every one of our locations are open, it is 14 lifeguards that we need
14.
to cover, yes. to
Everything.
Cover the 3 pools and Betterton, yes.
On a given day.
On a given day, when all of them are opening, yeah, correct. So we always look to try to hire like 30 lifeguards, because you have kids who want to take vacation, they can't, work certain days. And right now we're at 9, and we've been talking to all of our returnees, and I think there's 4 to 5 that are coming back, they just haven't filled out the paperwork. So that's putting us up to 14, which is what we need.
I honestly believe that now that there's one more set of, the training to become, for young people to become lifeguards. I think this coming weekend out at the Y, they're having it. And I know there's gonna be a couple, if that's gonna be talking with you about working for you
Okay.
after that. So we may be seeing more. But one thing I did see where, in the advertisement, the Y, and they need, obviously they need lifeguards as well. It costs, it's not a big deal, but it may be to some people. It's $250 to take that class. And I read where the Y, excuse me, the Y will, if you promise you're gonna work for them, they'll waive that fee. Wonder if we should do the same thing.
I mean,
Part of
We
the
have to pay
discussion.
the fee, I think, right? Because it's the Y waiving the fee, so we would
Or reimburse.
reimburse the lifeguard for the fee.
I'm just saying.
That is something that I've been in talks with Pat about putting it into our budget and seeing if we can do that, which I'm not opposed to that. It's just finding the kids who want to take the class and get certified and make sure we
It
have
might
enough
not
kids
make
for the
any
summer.
difference, but if I'm a 15, 16-year-old kid and I'm getting ready to be a lifeguard and I'm going, and one organization is saying, it won't cost you anything if you come to work for me, or I gotta pay $250 to go to work for somebody else, I probably know where I was gonna go to work. I just
Agree.
thought, and we're not talking about a huge amount of money, but this lifeguard situation, it's like volunteers in the county. We're running out of young people, and that makes up your volunteers, it makes up your lifeguard, people like your lifeguards. It's only so many people to do those jobs, so, I mean, look, for $250, we're talking about $2,500 if we had 10 people do that, or 5,000 if we had 20 or whatever, but I don't know whether that would help. I'm not, certainly not against what you're requesting, letting some outside outfit, although we did try that one year to had an outside outfit do all of it for us because we were running short on lifeguard. And it was a little troublesome as well. If my memory serves me, it didn't work as well as we were
Yeah,
hoping.
you're absolutely correct.
Right.
And the
There was a
reason,
dispute at the end of
Yeah,
that over
there
a
was.
number of issues, yeah.
but with the companies that we're hoping to get bids from, contracts from, we know that they're reliable because they work for other Parks and Rec in other counties. And they come highly recommended. So those are the ones that we're going to try to push to if, we can get this to go through, to get a contract or a quote from them, because we know that they're reliable. They've done a great job for other Parks and Rec divisions in Talbot and Dorchester County, so.
I just remember the company, I was here, we had the presentation from the company that did it before, and the commissioners questioned them as to whether or not they could do this. And they were very confident that they could, and then we had numerous issues with them not providing adequate staffing or not performing the duties under the contract.
So how come they can What's the difference between them being able to hire lifeguards and us not, Jill? Just curious. Are they paying them more, or are they, do you know?
They're able to pull them from a wider net. So they staff pools, well, depends on the company, but there's, if they're staffing pools down at Talbot, they're pulling kids from Delaware, and they're already sending them down to Talbot, so they can
Yeah,
entice them.
well, part of what my concern, and again, I'm not opposed to this, I want to try to keep, but part of my thinking about this, the concern would be, is if this young person lives in Dover or wherever the case may be, are they going to want to drive to Rock Hall that day and/or Millington, or Millington's fairly close if it's Dover, but that would be my only, hopefully they'll be willing to do that.
If I remember, if my memory's right, that company that we hired some years ago to try to do that, they were out of Wilmington, I thought.
Yes, correct. That is
Yeah.
correct.
And where, obviously, they draw from a larger populated area, I guess, but, I don't know, if you think that will help with Millington, but I'd also think about doing something, if we need these people to go to work for us, you don't have to take that every year, do you?
Every two.
Every 2 years?
Every 2 years. Mhm. Yeah.
It's definitely something on the, that's on the table that we've
Yes.
been discussing in
You'll see
order
it.
to.
But it's not going to do you any good for this year unless we were to decide that we could move forward with helping to pay for their certification.
Yeah, and
Right.
kids that are going to be working this summer typically get it during the winter time, so it's the latecomers that are doing it now. And we do have, I think, about 5 kids that have already hired in this class this coming weekend, so we are pulling from that group.
Yeah, I know of a
Already.
couple that's indicated to me that I know they're going to take try to get their certification this weekend at the Y, and are looking forward to maybe getting a job with the county or them or the Y1. I know they're going to try to become lifeguards, so there's a few more out there, but that's not going to solve your whole problem for sure.
Sorry, please.
So the class that they're having this weekend, that's just for lifeguard, that's not for the chemical part of maintaining the pool, right?
No.
And
That's an additional course that has to be taken.
That's an additional course that we Marva's getting ready to, bless her heart, to teach that class, hopefully, and we're getting ready to submit all the paperwork to the state in order for us to be able to teach that class to the kids. So, yeah, and that's your pool and spa operator class.
I remember that was my summer job when I was in high school, and in 1979, I think it was about $5 or $10 to take the lifeguard certification. I heard 250, it's like
yeah, 275, 300.
275, that's just,
And the pool
Pools
operator
now
is another
salt?
$400.
Most of
Well,
them salt.
that was about
Converted
$50
over to
then.
salt?
Sorry.
No.
They're all chlorine.
Chlorine.
So in looking at what Coastline Pool Services has proposed, it says here from March 1st to September 1st. So do we normally open the pools in March?
In mid-April. Not open to the public, but that's when the contractor comes in to start, getting everything ready.
they're essentially asking for the first payment in advance before they start to do work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I just took a quick look at this, and just one concern I have is if they have in here, if there's a dispute between the parties, if they win, we pay their attorney's fees, but if we win, there's no provision in there for them to pay us. So at a minimum, that should be reciprocal. If there's a dispute, if one side has to pay the other sides, both sides should be that way, regardless of who's the winner and the loser.
And this, just so you guys understand, this is just a baseline because we need to try to figure out if we could be able to sustain this with our current budget that we have. So this is, what you're seeing in front of you is definitely not the contract, the initial contract that we're gonna have with them. We'd have to put it out to bid, see who else bids on it. We just kind of wanted a baseline because we need to understand, okay, can we find this within our aquatics budget to be able to bring it to you guys to ask Basically, it's going to be, no additional cost in our budget. It's just we're going to have to switch some numbers around with different accounts.
So you're not asking them to approve this contract?
Correct, no.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
just-
no.
I don't like the idea if there's a dispute, we have to pay their attorney's fees if they win, but they don't have to pay ours if we win. Yeah.
And Jill, I would, thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to make sure we understood that it was this is a request to allow you to proceed with a public bid for the services.
That is
We would
correct.
use county contract language and be able to dictate the terms of that in the bid. And I'd ask that you coordinate with our procurements department as this may be a prime candidate for what we call a qualitative bid, where we could factor in the location, the staffing, the experience, as well as the cost, and not purely on a lowest cost basis. So we'd be happy to assist you. Obviously, things need to move quickly
Yes,
to get
yes,
this on time.
yes.
So,
But yes, Dan, you're absolutely correct.
thank you.
And Joe, you probably mentioned this, but when does the county open the pools for?
Memorial Day weekend,
Okay. And we usually close them on Labor Day,
correct,
after Labor Day.
after Labor Day.
I had sent you an email last night asking for some numbers in your current budget. If you could share those, it would be a help to me. On associated costs currently compared to what you have proposed here. And I realize this is just an example. But if you could tell us, what you think that you spend on lifeguards per year, and as well as chemicals and any other maintenance, that would be helpful.
Okay, sure. So the chemical costs, I have it broken down by pools, but at Millington, last summer we spent 2,500. At Bayside, we spent 2,000, and at the community center, we spent 14,000, well, almost 15,000. What we have budgeted for staff at those locations, which, is a slim margin, and this is if we're fully staffed. At Millington, about 56,000. At Bayside, a little over 19,000, and at the community center, 166,000. And then,
Now, say that again.
I guess we could just stick with the community center pool, so you can,
So, for chemicals total, did I hear you say 15,000?
15,000 for the community center.
And then you have 2,500 for Millington and about the same for Rock Hall.
Yes.
Okay, so you got about 20,000 there.
Yep.
And what was the salaries for the lifeguards?
So pool cashiers, lifeguards, our assistant aquatics coordinator, and swim lesson instructors are all lumped into what we have for staff. But at the community center, 165,000. At Bayside, about 20,000, and at Millington, 55,000.
On hearing that, this may be a smarter way to go. The only thing that concerns me is for the young people here in the county that do want a job with the county, we're kind of taking that opportunity away from them.
Well, they would hire our current staff that wouldn't
they would.
apply
They're,
for.
they're just talking about hiring lifeguards to take care of Millington.
Yeah, currently just at
And
Millington.
using local people for the community center, Rock Hall, and Betterton
Betterton.
Beach.
Correct. Looking down the road, if we've got a wonderful relationship with them and it makes sense, that would
And I
be a
don't-
future
I
discussion,
can't-
but.
Believe for a minute
So
that
this is just for.
outside contracting is going to be any cheaper than hiring locally.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to do it for nothing either. The outside contract, there's going to be a cost that's going to come with that as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
able to absorb that in our current budget with what they have proposed.
I personally don't have a problem with you putting it out for a review and bid for our review when we get it back. But I think what I would like to see is to see exactly what the county's currently paying to operate just the Rock Hall pool, what they're currently paying to operate the community center, and then what we're currently paying to operate Millington. And I guess my other question is when we had a shortage at the beach or at the pool in Millington or wherever, what is your policy as far as moving forward with the operations?
So our first pool is the beach, because people can still enjoy the beach without having lifeguards down there. We don't like to do that because of safety reasons, but that's our first pool, is we'll pull kids from the beach and put them at other locations. At that time, if we're still low numbers of lifeguards for the day, we'll close down Bayside Pool. And then if we're still low numbers, which we have done, we limited the amount of people that can come into the pool, because for one lifeguard, we can only have 50 people enter into the pool. So we just minimize our numbers for the day. We may have 3 lifeguards, so then we're only do capacity of like 100 people.
Which we did have to do last summer, just talking about at Millington, most, 23 out of 28 weekends.
Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Then I'll entertain a motion.
If I get back to it here. I'd like to make a motion for, to allow Parks and Rec to move forward with a bid process that will be evaluated, whether there's a cost benefit to doing what they have proposed.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. And the cost of these contracts, I mean, they don't supply the chemicals and stuff. They're just supplying lifeguards, right?
They supply the chemicals.
They do?
Yes.
That's why I would like to see the comparison for each facility. Well, like you said, what you're looking for is just someone to take care of Millington,
Correct.
and you all would take care of the others.
Correct.
So whatever you spend on Millington, I'd like to see the comparison
Exactly.
Okay,
of what we're currently doing as opposed to what someone's going to bid,
okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess we'll discuss this more during your budget,
Yes.
presentation, so. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And Jill, I would note, if you work with our procurement department, we can also structure the bid sheets with add alternates and things, so we could break it out where the base bid may be just lifeguards, and then what would the cost for the chemicals be with the option to award that or not, to see where the value may be. So
Okay.
we'd be happy to work with you on that.
And if there is a problem with what our legal counsel brought up about the attorneys, we don't want to be paying for their attorney fees because our attorney's not that good. So, we want to be careful with
I
that.
do the best with what I have to work with.
Yes, we would actually ask for his input as well, with the contract, so, yes.
I was going to say that earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, appreciate
Thank
it.
you. I think we now have Mark Harper, our associate planner. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good.
I'm here this morning to present to you a preliminary report for the CPCN application. An applicant referred to as TPE MD KE 77 for the installation of a 5 megawatt utility scale solar energy system, which would be near Kennedyville. The proposed site is 304 acres. The address is 12721 Bloomfield Road, Kennedyville, Maryland. Approximately 77 acres of that property to be utilized for the system, and that proposed system or this parcel is zoned AZD. As you may know, the county restricts utility-scale solar in the AZD to a limit of 5 acres by special exception. Any application for 2 megawatt or greater solar facility does require CPCN certification, and they go before the Public Commission, the state, in order to get that license for it. As part of this process, they present to us this application, and we provide a preliminary report, and this is what we have done. We've received that application. We looked through that report, and in our, or the application they sent to us, and in our response, we are allowed to provide 3 items. One is a statement finding as to their compliance with the comprehensive plan, a statement in regards to the compliance with the land use ordinance, and suggestions for improving or modifying their application. So I've provided for you is that preliminary report for your consideration and potential signature. In regards to those 3 components, for the consistency with the comprehensive plan, they do meet some of the requirements or some of the ideals behind that comprehensive plan, primarily in terms of economic development and also in terms of providing renewable energy resources. Where they're not compliant with that particular comprehensive plan is their intention to place it within the AZD. So it's a mixed component in terms of their compliance with the comprehensive plan. In addition, the particular property is within the PPA, which is, let's see here, priority preservation area. And so that's one of the components, and we'll address that in our last portion, which are our suggestions for modifications or improvements. The second component, consistent with the land use ordinance, it's a bit detailed, but I've gone through and looked at their environmental review document, which consists of the comprehensive plan, glare analysis, screening, a number of components in regards to how our land use ordinance addresses special exceptions for utility-scale solar in the AZD, and also our countywide standards for utility-scale solar. They are a bit numerous, so I won't go over those, but we do make some suggestions on improvements and corrections so that do come in compliance with that land use ordinance. In regards to the third part, suggestions for improving or modifying the application prior to submission with the Public Service Commission, we have drafted the following recommendations. Aside from the proposed scale of development with AZD, the proposed project appears to be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. However, compliance of the concept plan and the ERD with the regulations of the land use ordinance is less clear. Numerous items, such as outlined in Section B of this document, require correction. These include revising the landscape buffer to satisfy requirements, addressing adequate provision of effective screening and avoidance of visual intrusiveness, addressing proposed overhead wiring, adherence to setback requirements, determining forest conservation method, resolving contradictory information, and correcting some typos in ERD. The county recommends providing commentary as to the consistency of the proposed project with the environmental design standards within AZD as set forth in our land use ordinance. Prior to submission of a concept plan to the county for review, the requirements also established in ordinance will need to be addressed in the plan, which include a citizen participation plan and a conceptual sediment control and stormwater management plan, which had not been presented in this original application. Additionally, given the displacement of approximately 77 acres of PPA farmland in the AZD from agricultural production, the county requested a donation of $102,500 to its Agricultural Preservation Fund for use in purchasing agricultural preservation easements, which figure is based on the Maryland formula for determining agricultural value of land as used by the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation and found in Comar. So we offer this response for your consideration and potential signature. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Well, no, I guess maybe just a couple of comments. I don't know that any of this will matter if the proposed bills that are at Annapolis now end up getting through. I mean, I don't, which I guess they haven't.
Sort of up in the air as to how much we got to say about it.
That's exactly, yes.
I can say this, that there appears to be a trend here among the developers that they're not looking at our zoning when they're citing these. They look at, I think, suitable land, and then they look at the distance from a substation or the distance from a distribution line. And then they approach the farmer or the landowner. So their decisions aren't, like, they're not looking at a map and saying, here's where the county has designated unlimited size solar to be. They say, here's where a transmission line is, here's an open field, this is what we want to do. And so in our zoning, we provided for large-scale solar projects in certain districts, including industrial, which we've made sufficient acreage available. But we're seeing applications in the ag zone, where under our zoning, we limit them to 5 acres and require a special exception. They're citing them at whatever acreage they want, and they're not going to apply for a special exception because they know it can't be granted because it's greater than 5 acres.
Yeah, and they do state that in their their ERD, that they don't intend to apply for a special exception because it would be denied.
Right.
Yeah. So the state can preempt our use ordinances on different properties or zoning districts. So we do have some limited response. One of the things that we've been able to do, and we've been successful, and this is true with the Peacock Corner one, which also had a recent hearing, was for the request for that donation for the Agricultural Preservation Fund. So this particular site, they are pursuing the community solar project. That's 5 megawatts or fewer, and this is a statewide program. The application for the one in Peacock Corner was also a community solar-based type one. So they are limited to 5 megawatts of production.
Whereas the Morgneck solar was, I think, 45?
Right, that is not a community solar.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was over a couple hundred acres, but
Yep,
still,
about 245.
this is 77 acres coming out of
Yeah, that
ag land.
includes the buffer as well. By the buffer, I mean the screening buffer around the facility.
I think you've done a very good job drafting the letter for our consideration. You pointed out a lot of areas where they were non-compliant. I'm like Albert, I believe that a lot of this is going to depend on what happens in Annapolis.
Sure.
But at this stage, I think that this is probably a good thing to do at this point in time. And it may be all for nothing, but depending on what the state does in this session. But at least
Sure.
we're, pointing out some inconsistencies where they're not compliant.
Yeah, they may be able to preempt the use, but we do have a lot of say in the design components. We're finding with Morgneck, for example, they've come above the bar, our requirements for those design features, so we can apply that same kind of rigor to these applications as well. And just of note, the engineering firm that's done Morgneck is also the one behind this particular application as well.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I think they're doing the Peacock Corner one as well.
I think they are, yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I have a lot of comments, but I'll probably keep them to myself.
Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion and we'll see if we can send the letter or not. I make a motion to approve the letter as drafted and as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim Miller.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I have Rachel with me this morning. I have 2 items for you. One, Rachel's here for. The first one is for your approval to extend a conditional offer of, actually transfer at the moment, of employment for the position of code enforcement officer. As you'll recall, you all recently approved the promotion of Mike O'Neill to Chief Officer when Brian Foreman retired, and we're here to ask to backfill Mike's old position as code enforcement. You have the information in front of you of the two candidates who were considered. The recommended candidate, all that information is before you. If there's any questions, we can address them.
Do we have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Is this, I just have one question. Is this candidate currently an employee of the county?
Yes, sir. And his intentions are to retire from his current position, and then after the requisite 45-day waiting period, become employed in this position that we brought forth to you.
But this candidate hasn't retired yet.
Not yet.
But he intends to retire if he, in order to take
Yeah.
this job.
The opportunity presented itself, and he'll have, if my memory serves, he'll celebrate his 21st anniversary with us next week, so he's eligible. And when this opportunity came up, it tied nicely with what his plans, were for the future anyway.
I'm somewhat, and I don't have a problem with this employee, with this position, but I am also somewhat familiar with the state of Maryland's pension rules and regulations. And you are supposed to avoid any conversations with your previous employer until after the 45-day period. I would think that you would bring this back after he completes his 45 days if he's still interested.
No, I understand.
I mean, I'm just trying to avoid a problem for him and maybe potentially a problem for the county.
Yes, his retirement is dependent on what the decision is made today.
Well, that's what you're not supposed to discuss.
Yeah. And after his 45 days, then we will reconvene, probably maybe if you guys would like, I could do a second interview. But
I don't think you need to do a second interview. I think you just need to wait 45 days and bring it back to us, and then I think we've complied with the law.
Sure, we can absolutely do it that way, yeah.
And I'm not opposed to it, but I don't want us to get jammed up, and I don't want him to get jammed up.
Understood. Yeah, and absolutely, we'll handle it that way. We posted the position, and he, was interested in the position, so we entertained the conversation, but no offer's been extended. He inquired, we gave him information. So I think we followed the letter of the law in that regard.
I think you have so far. It's just
Yeah.
that I think if we act on this now, that we risk being in violation, and I don't want that to happen.
No, understood, yeah, that's a great point. Certainly we'll table a conditional offer until the 45 days is expired and, follow protocol that way. I don't see any reason why we can't get that done. That was kind of the expectation anyway, but you're right, it makes it clean.
So I'd like to see us defer this.
Right, we just don't,
Just table this.
no action.
Right, exactly. And, once we've gone through the timeline, we'll come back and make request the formal motion and move from there. Thank you, I appreciate that information. That's helpful.
You got another issue here.
Yes, sir, I have a second item. It doesn't actually involve Rachel, but she's welcome to sit. This is actually, you don't have to get up. This is actually a proposal and a request for approval to create a new position. It actually came out, I've got to give an awful lot of credit to Dan and his team. They've been working on it. As you know, filling plant operator positions has been a major challenge for the county. And Dan's group has been trying to come up with creative ways to get there. We talked probably last fall, winter, about the idea of trying to grow our own. And the obvious movement was from utility tech to plant operator. As Dan and his team have been working through this, they've found that there's kind of the ability through basically an apprenticeship-type program to create a stepping stone from someone who maybe we have as a utility tech to take on some certifications and start to move towards the full certification to be a plant operator. It turned out that there's an employee in Public Works who's exceeded everybody's expectations in that regard. So as we talked through it, it made sense to make a proposal here for a position between the utility tech and plant operator that we're calling plant operator in training. We slotted it into grade between those two positions, recognizing that at the moment, nobody has all the credentials to be a full-fledged plant operator, but it's the next stepping stone to get there. So what we're here in this forum is to ask for your approval to create and put that position, plant operator in training, on our books, and then we can discuss movement from there.
It's sort of a way to bring some incentive to someone to want to continue to study and learn to be a plant operator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking specifically off of what Jim said, to become an Operator 1 title with the county, you need your operator's license. I think that's a very reasonable requirement for that position. To obtain the license, there are two criteria. The first is to have passed the appropriate tests. In this case, it's the Class 5 wastewater operator test, as well as the Class 4 water treatment, so water and wastewater. Additionally, you must have worked under a licensed operator for a period of 3 years. So this operator in training position, the criteria to be eligible for it would be passing the tests. This incentivizes our staff to put in the time on the books, study, get the certification tests done, and it basically provides a rung on the ladder between utility tech operator 1, where you don't need to have waited 3 years. We have some staff that have shown great initiative to get their tests out of the way early, and this would recognize the efforts that they have put in and their progress towards becoming an operator without having to, okay, you passed your test, now you're on hold for 2 more years before we're allowed to promote you.
I think this is a good bridge or stepping stone, but this close to budget time, would it be better off to see where we're at in our budget?
The department's current.
I agree with what Albert's, I mean, I understand what Albert's saying, but personally, I think these positions are too important to wait.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, right.
We don't hardly have enough now, and we're getting ready to build another wastewater treatment plant in the next year or so.
The proposal we're discussing right now.
How much money, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And we are not discussing promotion of a specific employee at this time. We would need to create the position first and review candidates as a subsequent item to determine that, yes, we are going to promote someone, but this at least would get the position on the books.
And as Dan and I had discussed it, if we get to that stage of creating the position is approved, it would be a promotional opportunity, so the cost is fairly negligible, and Dan can absorb that sort of a promotional expense in his current budget.
Fairly negligible is certainly relative, particularly, unfortunately, with what I think is coming down the pike to us here in the next several months.
No argument there.
But I
mean,
guess,
we're
Dan,
not talking
another thing
about
I
an
want to,
additional FTE.
another thing that I want to, is we're not necessarily creating another position, we are creating another title. Correct? We're not necessarily hiring.
Right, we are not adding staff
We
as
would-
part of
We
this.
would, and as Dan and I talked about it, we would not hire anybody into this plant operator and training position. It would always be a promotional opportunity for our internal staff. And what I meant by the negligible is, we wouldn't be adding, if we promoted somebody now, we wouldn't be adding necessarily another FTE, another full body. It would simply be the incremental promotional cost.
I
And
think
Dan
in
can
all
absorb
fairness,
that.
though, I mean, I think in all fairness, I think you do have someone in mind that might qualify for this position eventually.
We've identified someone who we think
Right.
could fit the bill, absolutely.
Well, we certainly don't want to lose anybody that's in this department.
And that could be a risk, to be frank.
Right.
Because there's not a lot of them around.
Well, that's, it's not
They are few and
funny at
far
all, but,
between. Yeah.
I mean,
This
we're
is
talking
been a
about
tremendous
lifeguards
stepping
earlier,
stone
now we're
idea.
talking about these, I mean, we could go right on down the line.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
So basically, I understand you're gonna create a new position for a plant operator
In training, yes, sir.
in training. But we're not gonna be adding another employee
Correct.
to
No, it
take
wouldn't be
place of
another.
No, this
if-
is
what
just,
their job
If someone gets
description is.
promoted from
This is
utility
sort
tech
of-
to plant operator in training, Dan's not going to turn around and ask to backfill that utility tech position. His staffing FTE is going to remain flat. That's why the cost is fairly negligible to do this.
So can you tell us what the percentage is of what this employee that you have in mind that would be eligible for something like this, what the percentage is as far as the increase in salary?
We're projecting 5% at this point. I don't think it's going to be more than that because that fits into the structure reasonably. And that's also the guidelines in current policy.
And at this salary range,
you're talking about
that's about $2,500, yeah.
Right.
Maybe a little under that number, but yeah, I don't think it's
If it's a
any worse than that.
$50,000 employee, it's
Yeah.
$2,500.
Yeah, and I don't recall if that particular individual's at 50, but yeah, that'd probably be the most case that we'd be talking about.
Well, I certainly agree with what Albert has said, and I also agree with what Ronnie said about, this has been an ongoing problem. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the new position of the plant operator in training.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Dan, you're up now.
Yes, sir. I have 4 items on today's agenda. The first is for enterprise fleet management. If you recall, earlier this fiscal year, I believe it was December maybe, a purchase of a new crane truck for the Water Wastewater Division was approved and submitted to Enterprise. After reviewing some specifics of that vehicle, Enterprise has requested that the county execute a self-insurance addendum to our master agreement with Enterprise. Basically, this just recognizes the value of that vehicle compared to the average truck. It's a F-350 with a crane mounted in the bed, and the inherent risk of operating a piece of equipment like that, again, as compared to a pickup truck. So this agreement spells out some specific terms for the insurance that must be carried associated with that vehicle.
Is there any associated cost?
Did Jim get
I think only if there's a claim made against us.
Yes.
Essentially, is
Probably a little bit money,
we're
but-
certifying that we're going to self-insure whatever is above the policy that's covered with the fleet. Is that essentially?
Yes, and I do believe that the terms of the insurance required that are listed in this agreement are what we had planned on
And we have a-
insuring the vehicle.
We have a truck similar to that now.
Yes, which carries similar insurance.
I was going to say, okay, that's.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the self-insurance addendum to the master equity lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. The second item, the next 2 items deal with the roads division, the first of which is our annual surface treatment program. We have coordinated with American Paving Fabrics Incorporated to develop a piggyback contract. It would be piggybacked off of Howard County's contract with this vendor. The total value of this contract is $336,377.25 in surface treatment of roadways. That covers 13.22 miles of roads across 26 different roads. The longest stretches include Wharton Lynch Road for over 2 miles, Kennedyville Road, the northern portion of Kennedyville Road for 1.5 miles, Skinner's Neck, McKinleyville, and Foxhole, each at just over 1 mile. All costs, as well as all road limits and roads to be surface treated, are consistent with the FY25 budget. So we have coordinated and confirmed that we are on budget for this work, and we will be able to complete the intended road list for this year.
And we have piggybacked with this company and with this county
Yes.
in the past, and everything has worked out
Yes, sir.
seamless.
Yes, sir, yes.
I know we've been doing it the last couple of years, but how long has that relationship been in existence, Dan, do you know?
I believe around 5 years.
Okay.
Yep,
This is Tarnship.
yes.
Yeah.
And no surprises have come up in the past?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, we've coordinated and confirmed the dimensions of the roadway, the appropriate lengths. The square yard cost was as anticipated, so we are in line with budget.
So for the public, that we've had this working relationship.
Yes.
And it's been fairly seamless.
It really keeps us from having to buy equipment and maintain the equipment and stuff for a few, to do it ourselves.
To do it in-house, yes, it would be a significant equipment investment, and that does pull staff off of other tasks.
That's the idea, of getting a bigger company that does a lot of it and have plenty of equipment doing it for us.
Their cost per mile is substantially less expensive than ours would be, especially when you factor in the equipment that would be needed.
Any other questions?
And it is within your budget.
Yes, sir.
If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a piggyback contract with the American Paving Fabrics Incorporated for surface treatment services of roads in the amount of $336,377.25 under existing Howard County, Maryland contract number 4400004869.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. The next item deals with the annual roadway line striping contract. Again, it's a similar situation where we have a machine that can paint lines on the road. To do it at the scale we intend to and that the county needs, it's not really feasible. Ours is much better suited for spot repairs and parking lots, things like that. So we have prepared a piggyback contract with Alpha Space Control Company Incorporated. This contract is piggybacking off of an existing State Highway Authority agreement and would have a total value not to exceed $50,000, which is the budget for line striping in FY25. The contract unit price is just under 12 cents per linear foot. So if we were to max out this contract at $50,000, that would buy just under 80 miles of road striping. Some roads have 2 stripes, so, that number is just purely based on the unit price, but so a little over between 79 and 80 miles total of road striping.
If we have a line striper, how often do we use it, Dan?
It is used with a reasonable frequency. It is much better suited for smaller areas, parking, things like that, than
I
truly.
understand, but how many times have we done a parking lot?
I would need to confirm that offhand. I don't know.
We shouldn't be doing parking lots for other people.
No.
And I bet we don't do our own.
We-
I guess what I'm getting at is that a piece of equipment that we need to keep in our inventory? Just something to think about.
Understood. Yeah.
If we're gonna sub this out, then why do we need to keep the maintenance and
Sure.
just something to think about?
I have seen county or Public Works paint the parking lot at the sheriff's office from
Okay.
time to time. Whether we need a machine or not to do that, I mean, we're only painting parking spaces, so. And I think the big cost is probably the paint.
Yes,
Oh.
materials.
And of course, whenever you piggyback on these contracts.
Right.
It's a considerable, or potentially a considerable savings.
That's, exactly.
So it may be something we need to look at if we need to continue to maintain that equipment or not.
That's all.
Sure, yeah.
But we'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, and it may not be worth, I mean, I don't know how old this piece of equipment is, it may be worth holding on just because we have it, it's paid for. I understand all that, I'm just,
Yeah, and I don't, we're not talking about a vehicle. I believe it's
Right.
around $10,000 to $15,000 value for the equipment.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Probably something to just walk behind.
Yes, it's actually, it can be used for roads, it can be used for field striping of athletic fields as well. I know there's been
Okay.
some coordination
Okay.
with grounds as well for that,
Gotcha.
as needed.
Then I'll entertain a motion, no other questions.
I'd like to make a motion to piggyback on the State Highway MDOT contract number XY2505G77 with Alpha Space Control Company Incorporated for road line striping not to exceed the amount of $50,000 under the same pricing terms and conditions of SHA MDOT with no option to renew.
second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, the ayes have it.
You see where I'm going with all these questions there?
Absolutely. Understood. So then the final item today deals with the Weed Control Division and their contract with the State Highway Administration. We do have an annual contract that is renewed or put in place each fiscal year. The original value of our agreement was $21,300. And what that is what we charge SHA to perform weed control on their right-of-ways. They pay $150 an hour for our crews and gas and the vehicle maintenance. They also provide us all the chemicals that are used at that time and provide traffic control, safety measures, truck-mounted attenuators behind our vehicles. So the original contract was about 142 hours of work, and we have all but expended that from the fall season. That was a known at the time. We were reviewing the burn rates of that budget and started coordinating last fall with SHA and said, hey, if you want us to keep going at the level we're at, we're going to need some additional funding. Over the winter, we have come to an agreement on an addition to this contract of $10,500, which is about 70 hours of additional weed control on SHA right-of-ways. So that brings our total contract to $31,800, which represents 212 hours for which the county is working for the state, being funded by the state. So this agreement, again, increases the ceiling on the original, and we would recommend approval.
Any other questions?
No, this one's going in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the First Amendment to Project Task Agreement number KE004, weed control between the Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway Administration, and Kent County, Maryland.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
And before we move off of Public Works, Commissioner, we had spoke recently about the coordination of the Millington wastewater treatment plant and some impacts that.
Discuss that now.
Sure, and our water
Mike,
wastewater
come up.
consultant, Mike Molds, is here as well to help the discussion.
Just to sort of set the stage, I received an email from Mr. Russ Richardson, who owns the property where the water and wastewater plant is projected to, has been determined to be placed. And we've got two major projects that's going to take place in the Millington area that we're a part of. One of them is the senior housing project, and then the wastewater treatment plant. The senior housing project, and Dan or Mike, you correct me if I misstate anything, but we've got the housing project that's underway up there, and Bramble's doing a lot of the work up there, is in need of a lot of soil. the property where our wastewater treatment plant is supposed to be located has a lot of soil they have to get rid of.
That's
At
correct.
some point. There's been trying to be some coordination to where the soil that has to be taken off the site where the treatment plant is going could be used at the senior housing project. Because most of that cost is going to, I assume, is in transportation. That's it's very close from this site to the school where the
Yes.
housing project is going to go. And I think there's been some negotiations been going on, or discussion, at least for a month or maybe a little longer. And now it's come a point where the housing unit has to have soil to keep Bramble working,
Yes.
or they're gonna have to stop, which is not something that we wanna see done. So they're either, we either gotta figure this out, how we can get the soil from Mr. Richardson, who is certainly gonna work. I mean, there are no, the part that I don't understand is the housing project needs it and wants it. Richardson's and the county's project has it and wants to get rid of it. How do we get these two together so that they can get it soon? Because if they don't, the problem is if they don't get it soon, they gotta go someplace else. Now, if they go someplace else and get the soil, that's all good and fine and they can keep on going. Probably gonna be more expensive for them.
It will.
And we are still gonna have to move that soil from Mr. Richardson's, and then we don't have a place to put it, which is gonna be more expensive for us.
Yeah,
So how do we get these two groups together so that we can, both people's wishes can be, we can get rid of what we need to get rid of, and we can put it where it needs to go.
We had a
place
call,
for it.
and there was some disagreement between the developer of the senior project and Mr. Richardson as to the cost sharing on that. Mr. Richardson had numbers, presented them to the developer of the senior project, and the developer of the senior project was reluctant to, at that time, to accept Mr. Richardson's numbers. As I recall, he was going to go back and study it and come up with the number that he felt was appropriate. I don't know if that has happened. I'll kind of turn it back over to Dan, but I was on the call, and there was not a meeting of the minds between Mr. Richardson and Mr. Hodgetts on that call.
Well, and I just recently talked to Mr. Richardson on the phone. He's in Florida right now, but I had a conversation with him, and I've had a conversation with Frank Hodge. I just think we need to get on a call and put this together, because both parties are, I mean, the last if I understood it right, Mr. Richardson has kind of taken himself out of it, and it's between, it's assuming that that's going to be that property is going to belong to the county, and at some point, it just seems like you got somebody that wants the soil, somebody that wants to get rid of it. It ought to be an easy fix, but if we don't do it quick, they're not going to shut Bramble down, and then they're going to have to go buy this soil from another area, which there's another place to get it, but it's going to be more expensive. I just think our group, Dan, Mike, Tom, maybe you need to schedule a time to get on the phone with Mr. Richardson and Frank Hodges and figure this thing out.
Yeah,
But
I'm going to kick this.
But at this point in time, it's not, we don't really have anything to do with it, do we? as a
Well, we do,
county?
we don't own it yet,
That's
but we
I
anticipate.
mean, maybe what we could do is be a unpaid mediator.
Well, that's that's
Right,
why
and
I'm
that's what-
saying to get together.
Yeah,
There's going to be a dollar amount to the county.
Right.
That's the key.
right, and I'm going to defer back to Mr. Molds and Ms.
But it's gonna be a dollar amount whether we do it now
True.
or do it later.
It
If
is.
we miss this opportunity.
Yeah, the the key's going to be that there's a concern over putting money into a project of land that we don't own. And two, we don't have the budget for the money to do this either. The other thing we've been back and forth on, and there's a copy of the spreadsheet I gave you that shows the layout of the plant, is that you see the access road goes down this proposed road that'll be done for some commercial property. So the costs were broken down between the access road and the wastewater plant where the excavation would be a lot of material. When we look at cost sharing, there's a share that the county would have, certainly for the wastewater plant excavation, and a partial share of the access road, because you need that to get the stuff out.
And the access road is planned in a location where it will be utilized by Mr. Richardson for his development.
Right.
It's not exclusively to our benefit, it's very much to his benefit as well, that road and having it graded out.
As well as for the senior center, the access road has to be built in order to get the material off the site. So the way we were looking at it was, split the share 3 ways on the access road work, and then we're picking up the most of the wastewater plant for doing that. Most of the discussions have been what the senior center is going to pay and what the county's going to pay, but we haven't seen anything about what Millington Crossing is paying.
County's gonna pay for what?
Bramble to perform the excavation of our site and truck the dirt off of our site.
So the material we're taking off the site that we're paying for is then
And we
being
haven't
sold.
purchased have we negotiated a price for the property yet?
No,
Waiting
we're
on
waiting on
appraisal.
I
appraisal.
was gonna say, because I haven't been aware of that either.
Right, right.
We finally got somebody to do it. I went through 2 other people rejected wanting to do it, and we found somebody. And he's doing the appraisal work now. We've given all the information for the.
But all of this information is hypothetical.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, but if it's hypothetical, we've gone through a lot of problems for nothing, because we've paid a lot of money to design a wastewater treatment plant to go on that property.
Oh, well, yeah, we're talking about where we are with the timing. If, let's say it doesn't work out, then we have a potential extra cost for the material when the time's done. There's been a lot of estimating in terms of how much should come off that material. Mr. Richardson's wanted even more detail to figure out how much we're excavating out for the tanks and the final elevations. You're going to have to wait until a contractor gets in to be able to do that. It's mainly cutting off the top of that knoll there to get it down, as you can see on the sketches there. But, there's concerns with what that cost is. So we're seeing some cost differential between what Mr. Richardson decided what was the portioning and what we thought was, and we really haven't been part of that discussion, but where his share might be and coming to agreement on that. The other problem is the timing that you mentioned, Mr. Fithian, as to what he needs to get the senior center going. Bramble's moved out, they've gone through the material that they had available, and it takes time for them to get these soil and erosion controls. As far as I know, they even don't have the permits yet for it.
I haven't heard.
So it's run, the timeline to get all this squared away has just been too tight to be able to make it happen.
So we'll just, I tell you that it seems like to me the timeline is too, we're not going to meet that, not going to be able to meet it. So, but at the end, because we don't meet it, we've still got they're still going to have to buy the material from someplace else, and we're still going to have to pay, and probably pay a little more when we get ready to move the dirt.
We're going to be
When the
doing
time
the
comes.
same material. We're still going to have to do some work afterwards, like I said before, excavation and doing with material. The thing that was mentioned is that the senior center hasn't said yes to the number that Mr. Richardson gave. So in my mind, he may be looking at potentially getting a cheaper price. Otherwise, he would have bid and gone after this one.
That's what he implied
Right.
also.
Yes.
The what now?
That's what Mr. Hodgetts implied.
That he might be able to get it cheaper somewhere else. Sounds
They
like
had come up with some numbers, and I don't remember them right off.
they
the
haven't
top.
agreed to anything.
Right. Our proposal versus what we've, our proposal is about $36,000 difference from the developer, Russ Richardson's proposal. And I believe it's around 17.5. That's the delta from what Mr. Hodgetts is willing to pay versus
mean,
what we've calculated.
In all honesty, I think that this is, Mr. Richardson is the developer of this property, and he stands to be, and he should, he's a capitalist, he should make money, but he stands, I mean, the county's not making money off of this. I mean, I would think that Mr. Richardson would be willing to, or would hope that he would be willing to negotiate, because inevitably, when it comes time for us to make our purchase, we're going to have to factor in all of our costs. And if one of those costs is to relocate this dirt on our dime, as a business person, you factor that into your purchase price.
Well, that's part of this discussion. He put together some terms that we've shared with Tom in terms of, he's looking he wants to know what the price is for the property, and then negotiating between what the property price and extra cost for the soil. There's a lot of things that have been tossed around and trying to do
It's a
it.
lot. I understand it is a lot. There's no
Yeah,
doubt
and
about it.
and we've been trying to work with him. The number kept changing. We didn't know where they were coming. At one point, they were looking at take the excess soil, and there's a site here where 301, from what I understand, they pulled a lot of borrow from when they built 301. That could be filled in, that he could eventually use for sites and stuff like that off of Howard Johnson's Road. But it's just the crunch between him getting the erosion sediment control, because they can't do any dirt removal until they get all the fencing up and everything like that, and the access to it.
I guess my question to that, though, is, how come we're no further along with that?
What?
The permits you say that we don't have.
Well, he was paying for the permits. Kevin Sheeran was doing the erosion sediment control.
This would be a soil erosion permit for the work represented on this plan, basically to remove dirt off of our site
property.
and to grade out the access road. And so Mr. Richardson does have investment in this, the soft costs associated with the engineering and permitting of this plan. But, the value of the work to be done for the access road that is beneficial to him as well, I don't feel is appropriately addressed in his current proposal. So to sum it up, I think we're not very far off, but we are
It
off.
was as simple to me as somebody needs dirt and somebody's got dirt. And we gotta move it, whether we give it to the guy that wants it, or we're gonna, when the time comes, if we're gonna build this sewage treatment facility, we gotta move that dirt.
That's correct.
Do we move it now in a hurry so our other project can take advantage of it? Or do we just tell him to go get his dirt someplace else and then we'll move this when the time comes? It just seemed like to me that there wasn't enough talking going on right now to put the two together to solve the problem.
No, we've had a lot of
Right.
discussions with him.
Correct. They were together, they just couldn't agree.
And we, as county commissioners, don't know anything about the problems until somebody sends me an email about it. A little bit, I'm not gonna say they're unhappy, because but it was like, you're losing a window to be able to find a home for this dirt that you're gonna still be stuck with later down the road if you're gonna do your project.
Yeah, the concept was solid. But we've had a lot of changes in terms of where that access road goes in. If you look at that sketch,
The
where the
colorized
entrance goes
sketch.
around, because there's a commercial property he was trying to do, so there had to be a lot of revisions that
If we
was
can't-
coming
look,
from him.
If this problem can't be solved, it can't be solved. I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm bringing it to the attention. I really wanted my colleagues and myself to understand what's going on, and that,
Mr. Molds and Mr. Mattson have been very proactive in coordinating all this. As I see it, there's a disagreement between two developers. Mr. Richardson has his project, Mr. Hodges has his project. and the two of them could not agree.
To the tune of what, $30,000? You estimated $36,000?
That is how far off our calculation of the county's share versus Mr. Richardson's calculation of the county's share.
In other words, the negotiator, that we feel there should be a lesser share of us because of the advantages of doing it. What
There's
Mr.
also a
Richardson
disagreement,
did-
Mr. Hodges disagrees with the calculation
Of
that Mr.
17.
Richardson made of his share.
Which is about
17,
17,000.
yes.
Because what he did was just took a proportion, 45, 55, it was our share, and then just ran some numbers that way and came up with it. So he came up, his goal was to get Mr. Hodges to have this number, and the number he gave him is, he's got that number, but that he hasn't accepted that number. So the theory would have to be even less, which would shift more of the cost back to the county.
All right, then simply put, our answer is we can't do this. We're not gonna be able to make this work, so we'll just, Mr. Frank Hodges will just have to go get his dirt someplace else, and we'll be stuck with moving our dirt when the time comes.
That's the thing. One of the other concerns is if you spend money now, that may not be eligible for any grant money. They don't pay you for stuff in it. So that's another factor that we have to consider when we get to that point.
But we also want to keep this project moving forward with the senior center and as well as the wastewater treatment plant. It sounds like to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but if there was some way for the county to mediate between the two parties to try to resolve the difference, and then bring that back to us if in fact it can be agreed to, then maybe we could.
Well, it sounds like you've been trying to do that. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not
it
saying.
sounds like you have, but I mean.
Right.
When was the last time you all talked with them about this?
Last week,
And I believe.
we
that-
actually sat down with Bramble
to go through
last
their
Tuesday,
numbers. Yep.
because the numbers kept changing he kept revising his proposal with these different scenarios.
Who, Bramble did?
Bramble did, yeah, we sat down with Bobby Bramble.
Based on Mr. Richardson's designs, it's been about 3 or 4 months we've been talking about this, and the design that would go on the plan to be permitted, what we see on these sheets, has changed 3 or 4 times over those 3 or 4 months. So there's been moving targets here. And just to provide some context, the savings to the county, if this deal were to come to fruition, would be, in our estimation, less than 1% of the total wastewater plant cost, which we're talking about big numbers, is not an insignificant amount of money. But I think that is some context for what we're talking about. We've attempted to adapt to the changing designs as best we can. And I think if there were more time available, I think we'd have a good shot of making this happen. The deadline that has been expressed to me is this coming Monday, with maybe a chance for a 1 or 2 week extension on that. And I don't believe we are close enough to the finish line to make it happen in that time, especially given the legal agreements associated with all this, authorizing the work, the contracts, the insurance.
What do you mean when you say, what were you referring to when you said 1% of our contract? Is that, you didn't mean that that's what we stand to lose if we don't put this deal together?
No, we're looking at for round number purposes, a $16 million wastewater treatment plant.
True.
The amount of money we would save for this is less than 1% of that $16 million. That's what we would save
If we acted right now.
if we did it right now and said,
But what's 1% of 16 million?
$160,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
It's significant. He said it's significant.
it is absolutely a significant amount. I just wanted to give some context for the number.
But on the other side of that is, and that was going to be a question, and I think you brought that up. If we start spending our own money now, chances are we're not going to get that back in grants.
Well, we have some money in land acquisition that was given to, like $350,000.
300,000.
It's not like we would have to dig into air. That $350,000 is allocated for land acquisition of that very piece of property to start with, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, that property, and as well as the property across the road for the discharge line. We're looking at that. And some of the information that he gave as far as the terms, I believe he wanted to have full payment. He wanted 10% down and then another complete in the next budget year. So we won't have the financing for that. So, some of the numbers that are getting tossed around is more than our $300,000 budget.
Right, oh, sure.
So looking for the money to pay for our share of this thing, it's not, that would be something you'd have to dip into reserves
But we
at this
just can't
point.
make that decision, though, quite honestly, unless we know about it.
And that's where we've been trying to work forward, is to know what that number is to give to you, to see what kind of impact that is to be able to cover that cost.
But we're also within a week's time that is pointed out that this deal is no longer doable. And today, we're only talking about it because I got an email in May.
Yeah, the way they kept changing and what they were doing, we couldn't get to the point where we could bring something to you without coming away with a lot
Well,
of
it
questions.
sounds like
on
we
it.
just well keep the two projects separate and let them fend for themselves.
Well, he has, the senior center has alternate source. Brambles told us where they can get that from, and they're under contract to do all this hauling and everything. The other thing to consider, when we do this excavation, we're already talking about this fill having a value to it.
Well, I was gonna say, there's gonna be a lot of dirt moved up there
Yeah.
at this project. I mean, I
So-
can't believe we're gonna have to haul a lot of it away.
And on the
Just
Eastern
to
Shore,
guess.
there's a demand for dirt, for fill and things like that.
Particularly, I mean, anybody who's been by here, it's a pretty significant hill here where we're talking about,
Yeah.
so.
So, the timing didn't work. It was trying to get everybody on the same pages about what we're doing as far as excavation and things like that. We spent a lot of time just getting agreement on the orientation and where the plant was before we could start doing the grading plans for it. We were back and forth on that probably for 2 or 3 months, because of his considerations on how he wants that commercial property to be laid out. You'll see on the one picture that we finally sent in for the erosion control, this is the proposed entrance. We're actually just going to go straight in to try to get it in there, and then have to move that access road once we do the project. So it's been kind of frustrating, but I'm trying to figure out how we could do this, but not getting things nailed down the way we wanted to, or needed to.
That's enough for me.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I wanted to talk through that update, so I appreciate the time.
I guess that brings us to public comment and media review. Mayor Foster.
Well, I'm here because the item on the agenda, which talks about letter of response to municipalities.
And they're going to be signed and sent out. We'll hand deliver yours right now if you'd like.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Sonner, you want to make sure he gets a copy of that letter?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, my closed session.
Yes, I do.
That'll take us into, we have a couple closed session items here. Entertain a motion to go into closed session, or you want to read that first?
I'll go ahead and make the motion to go into closed session under the Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305B. 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluations of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals of about pending or potential litigation, and there are two matters that we plan to discuss in closed session. One is going to be a personnel recommendation, and the second matter is going to be the legal opinion of the county attorney concerning pending or potential litigation matters, and to consult with staff regarding the matter.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. We will go into closed session.